Germany fishing.
We had mentioned the Solstice Club, and you've also founded a Star Trek club
Yes,
in
I
Fort
did.
Worth. And do you have a number for that also?
Yes, you can reach me at 817-485-8212 during normal business hours.
And that's the United Federation of Trekkies?
United Federation of Trekkers.
At this one.
I did it again. What can I say?
One thing I wanted to say about the fandom, this isn't just in the United States, the Star Trek fandom. This is all over the world.
Oh, yeah.
And as we see the progressiveness going in Eastern Europe, we hopefully maybe think that maybe the morals and the ideas in Star Trek might have shaped the way these people thought. I mean, all these people in East Germany that got together to say, hey, look, we don't like it this way, we want reforms. All those people probably watched Star Trek in their language in Germany. So you got to keep that in mind, that it's not just our country. This is all over the world. Hundreds of countries in different languages Star Trek is played.
And Robert, you also are
with
founder.
the USS Lone Star.
And is there a number that
you
they
can
call?
reach my communications officer, Robin Showalter, at 348-7887.
Okay. And did you start the club basically on these same principles?
Basically, yes. I believe Star Trek is shown in 62 different languages at this time.
Something like that.
62, and it is a worldwide phenomenon.
I don't think a lot of people realize that either, that Star Trek is as popular as it is. I think that most people think it is a basic.
As a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, it's the #1 rated show in syndication worldwide, and has been for the last
Yeah, last I heard.
for the last decade.
Last decade.
Alan Alda will be upset to hear that. I'm sure. So, when did you first get started into the Star Trek thing? I know that you had said you were hero worship when you were a little boy.
I'd always been a fan, but I never really got affiliated with fandom until a couple of years ago. And I went to a convention and I met some people.
Has Star Trek branched you out into other things, other science fiction, or has other science fiction branched you into Star Trek, or
Well, I've always pretty much been interested in other science fiction.
in both? We've been talking basically about Star Trek the whole time. Is there any other things that relate to Star Trek that you have been duly impressed with?
Relate to Star Trek or relate to science fiction?
Relate to science fiction, Star Trek.
Well, I don't know. I think it's like fandom. It's like there are a lot of people in Dallas. There are a lot of science fiction fans in Dallas, and they're not all into Star Trek. We've got Doctor Who fans. You've got Blake 7 fans, and these two series I had no idea what they were until like 3 years ago, and we got involved with this group FAN, which is the Fandom Alliance Network, that we've got several clubs in the area, and each one of them has their own little doo-ha. Like the ORAC has their Blake 7, they may not be a fan right now, but we've got the EDC, which is into Japanimation, and we've got Solstice, which is into Star Trek. We've got Ton Stoffel, which is into various and sundry science fiction things.
Literature, though.
And literature, and it works out. And I always believed that if you've got 5 fan clubs, can do a whole lot more to affect a change than one. If you've got 500 people, you're going to swing more weight than if you've got one. And so that's what we've started doing again, is getting things back together. In fact, the last Dallas Fantasy Fair, the Solstice, and the Gallifrey Connection, which is the Doctor Who fan club, sponsored the con suite, you know. And they said it's one of the best con suites they've ever had. And it's because we had teamwork, we had camaraderie. We've really started stressing this, especially like my first newsletter that went out. I said, you know, I don't want to hear about any interpersonal things, because as far as I'm concerned, that's outside the fan club. You know, when it deals with fandom and being a Star Trek or whatever, then that's a whole different ball of wax. And so it's getting along, you know, knowing your neighbor, know who they are, know who lives to the left of you, know who lives to the right of you.
Okay.
And that's what Star Trek's all about.
I think what we can sum that up in is saying that vision is what makes science fiction people in common, okay? Now, you're going to have disagreements, and you're going to have discrepancies, and you're going to have just jerks, okay? I mean, we talked about that last month. You're going to have idiots everywhere you go. I mean, Julia Child has fans that are idiots. It doesn't matter, okay? But what you see is a common kind of sub-message coming through that says, if you can get past this, if you can just get past this, you'll be okay, okay? And I know a lot of fans that are one of the biggest anime fans I know won't watch Star Trek. But he's a valid human being, you know, and he knows more about animation than I ever hoped to know. Okay, that's just part of it, you know. And I know people that are into Star Trek that won't watch cartoons. you know, well,
Unless
that's
they're
fine
Star
too.
Trek cartoons, but-
Sometimes not even those, you know, but it's just different strokes for different folks. What you have to understand, though, is that deep down inside, what they're watching it for is the same reason that you're watching whatever you watch for.
Well, I want to throw this into a lighter side real quick. I know that we've all been to conventions and we've all met a few of the Star Trek fans, Star Trek stars. Anthony, who was your favorite?
I think Kirk was my favorite.
William Shatner?
William Shatner, yes. He really is a good actor. He just unfortunately got stuck into the stereotype of Kirk.
Robert?
I don't know that I actually narrowed it down to one person that was my favorite. I liked all the characters. I liked a lot of the qualities of Mr. Spock about his, especially his knowledge, his scientific knowledge, his logical way of thinking. That impressed me. I just like to look at it as the whole cast was almost working together all the time, and that was the neat thing about Star Trek was the whole bridge crew, the whole cast always worked together. You know, it was a sense of brotherhood, if you will. You know, it's like these people are different. You know, they weren't all white, they weren't all black, they weren't all Caucasian, they were male, female, they
weren't all human.
They weren't all human, yeah. Spock was a Vulcan, for goodness sake. But yet, they're all working together. You know, that's something that was really neat, you know, something we can hope for.
Robert Rios, who was your favorite?
To echo Robert, I enjoyed them all because of the ensemble cast aspect, and certainly I think that carries on into the next generation. Professionally, I've always liked following Leonard Nimoy, and especially now that he's a seasoned, accomplished director in the industry. I myself stem from a television and film background, and so I'm particularly fascinated, to coin a phrase, with Leonard's career and where he's going.
Paul, how about you?
Well, character-wise, I've only met two of the characters at the conventions. One is James Doohan, who plays Scotty, and George Takei, who plays Sulu. And of them, I think I like George better because he has a good sense of humor.
Really?
And as to the characters, Mr. Spock, because he's logical and scientific.
Bob?
Oh, Marina Sirtis, no doubt. He's wonderful.
Stevie?
I'm partial to Scotty. He seems to have all the best lines in the movies. He really does. He's got the best. I pick one line from each movie that is the line for me from that movie. And the last three films, Scotty's had that line.
I have to get my Walter Koenig joke in now. Okay. Star Trek 6, Chekhov screams again. Okay, thank you.
I think George Takei, because when I met him, there were probably 500-600 people behind me in line waiting for an autograph. And he took his time, he shook my hand, and he looked me right in the eye, and very sincerely, after doing this for 20 years, said, "Thank you for coming to see me. You know, I really appreciate you." And he was sincere, and I was kind of touched by it.
Good.
Mine's George as well. I haven't met that many stars, and George Takei was one that actually sat there and we talked for 2 or 3 hours, just a group of us there at the hotel at one of the conventions.
I think I'd have to agree with you.
He's fun to ride around with in the car.
Yeah, George
He comments on
Takei,
everything, yeah.
my very first convention that I went to, I wrote a poem on a Texas driver's handbook and gave to him, and I thought he was going to give me a hug, and he leaned over and he kissed me. And through the rest of the convention, people were coming up to me going, "Oh, you're the one that George Takei kissed." You're the one that George Takei kissed. So,
He didn't kiss me.
well, I'd like to thank every one of you for being here today. You had a lot of interesting things to say, and I really appreciate it. And I hope that we can all get together at another convention or on another show and do this again. Anything, last words you'd like to say about your clubs real quick?
You
Anything
can
upcoming?
call us at 214-554-1536.
Just call us at that number, 817-485-8212. We meet every other Wednesday night.
And 214-348-7887. Robin Showalter, our communications officer. We meet every other Saturday.
We're starting to sound like a lineup at the state penitentiary.
Well, thank you very much, y'all, for being here today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, James.
And thank you for watching Starbase Dallas.